Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to do what we usually do, and that's propose something highly speculative, but based on very good reason. Okay, these are patterns that I'm noticing, and that people that are willing to think outside of the normal method and the normal information can recognize, and it's something we're going to talk about. So, like I mentioned in the previous video, I was going to dive a little bit deeper on Dr. Giugiani's work and Mithraism in general, and the connections with Gnosticism, with Sophia, the belief systems that are regarded in this method of thought. And what I'm particularly going to emphasize is the degrees of initiation and the methods of initiation that are used in the physical, because I believe that is also happening in the astral, right? Like I mentioned, from lead to gold, right? Alchemy is very prevalent in these systems of thought, especially in Masonic ones, right? And the whole purification by fire is something alluded to in the Bible, right? Jesus will come and purify the world by fire. And again, this is something very Mithraic. So let's discuss a little bit about where this, religion or philosophy even originated from, and what's the basis for it. So Mithra is a deity actually known by two names, which is Mithra Varuna. So Mithra would be the masculine, logical, structured side of it, right? And then Varuna would be the feminine, chaotic, what's it called, more magnetic side, right? The electromagnetism, yin and yang, light and dark. And this later became, to the Scythians, the lion with the sun behind it, right? And that's how we get the Leo sun and the Lion of Judah and the Son of God in the Bible and in astrology. These are all interconnected down the chain, okay? Because this system of thought spread throughout Asia, I think, from India, right, with the introduction of these Aryan beings, these alien beings, to which my conclusion is that they gave us these religions. It was solar worship, right, but it was also not just solar, but also Saturn, right? We have the dualities, like I mentioned in numerology. Solar is number 1, the one that shines bright, whereas Saturn is number 8, the one that's in the darkness, the black sun, right? The one that's working behind the scenes, the hidden hand. Okay, and we also have the Demiurgic figure in Gnosticism with the lion and the serpentine body, again reflecting the two elements of spotlight, solar, light, false light, life actually, and then death. Or even if you look at the skull and crossbones, the skull represents death, right, time, the Grim Reaper, whereas the crossbones represent the ecliptic of the earth, which are separated by 23 degrees. It's the X, right? So the skull with the X. And this was also a symbol promoted by all the pirates, right? They were essentially Mithraists, Phoenicians. Same thing, it's spread across Asia and through Europe and throughout the world. Now America, we see that with the eagle and the phoenix, with groups in Iran, these groups that were known as the ones that stand by the truth, and Yazidis worshipping the peacock. The peacock later became the phoenix to the Phoenicians, and it's an ode to Lucifer, right? And I'm saying all that to say this as well, but also the connection of the Lady Liberty, where it's actually not a lady. He is a man dressed up as a woman, holding the torch of fire like Prometheus. And if you guys watched my last video, I mentioned the connections between Mithra, Prometheus, and Lucifer, right? Given to America by Bartholomew, a Freemason, meant to represent the second degree of initiation in Mithraic structure, Mithraic graduation or initiation. And ergo, you see all the situations of male actors dressing as women in Hollywood, right? They are being initiated. So there are 7 degrees, So there are 7 degrees to the Mithraic structure, but before I get into that, I'm talking a little bit fast, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's discuss a little bit more about the background of Mithraism. So like I mentioned, the Mitra Varuna connection with the Vedas, again, connecting to the Aryans. Now, if you studied these Aryan beings, you'll know they're actually very racist and warlike, right? If you connect it also to Mars, Martians, Samaritans, Sarmatians, these Aryan beings were warlike. They were conquering beings. They were very powerful physically as well, right? Ergo, their belief system is also very militant. Actually, the military that we know of today is structured the same way, right? If you look at the initiation process of the military, it's meant to strip you of the ego, to create a brotherhood, to make you die for each other, to create a bond, right, with all your brothers, your sisters in the army. Sometimes even sexually, which was actually something that was very much emphasized in the Aryan militant traditions, because it was called and their bonding, I forgot what it was called. But they would get together and basically perform sexual acts because that created a deeper bond. And not only would you die for your brother or sister, but you die for your lover, right? It's a deeper bond. Which you hurt one, you hurt the other. So it's this chain that acts as a unit, right? And that's why, you know, with the introduction of Lady Liberty, America became one of the most militant countries in the world, right? Military-industrial complex. And even in the military, where you go to salute, this represents shielding your eyes from the light of Mitra, the sun, right? It's a salute. You're giving submission to the light. So, saying all that to say that it had spread throughout Europe throughout Asia and Europe with these initiatory practices. Okay, and what I believe to be happening is that these beings are still acting uniformly in the background and in the forefront, even through various figures and incarnations even. But they created, first of all, these religions, which you can say act as a control system, but also as a filtering system, right? It's a first degree of initiation of, can you see past the patterns? Can you see past the archetypes? Okay, so that's what is happening, right? That's what has been happening to people that enter New Age. They sort of break out of religion. They start seeing certain things that don't make sense, that are actually limiting to their wounds, that are making them feel less of, right? So they break free of that and they see past the patterns. That's the first degree, essentially, right? So they need a control mechanism, something that catches these people. Again, I've said this in other videos. The second one is called the bride, like I mentioned with the Statue of Liberty, right? So it mainly seems to pertain to men, although I'm sure it goes for women as well. Because we didn't get into this, but I'll talk about this more in a second. Mitra is actually connected to Shaitana, which is Satana, which is called the Lady of the Lake to the Iranians. Again, Iran. Lady of the Lake is the beast in the Bible, Satan, right? The serpent, but it's actually a dragon, right? The serpent had its legs cut off. It was a dragon. And throughout Eastern Europe, you have the Order of the Dracul, or the Dragon, with Vlad the Impaler and Skanderbeg that were part of that bloodline, part of that order that fought the Turks. So this dragon, Tiamat, also, is what Mitra used to give birth to itself, right? So we can already see the connections to Lucifer and Satan and Jesus, right? They're all interconnected in this story that was given to us. Now, I do believe Mitra to be this AI potentially being, or Aryan being, or whatever demiurgic being that is using all these various masks to shift and and create its a new form for itself, appropriate for the specific culture, right, for specific belief systems at the time. So now you can imagine where we get lots of Gnosticism from, right? Because Mithraics were connected to the assassins and the Knight Templars, right? Iranians that spread throughout Europe, which then became the Freemasons. What do you think the G in Freemasonry stands for? It's Gnosticism. They're Gnostic. They seem to have a deeper understanding of what is actually happening here. On top of that, they were put as shepherds by these beings, likely, right? They're the ones behind these Freemasons that are actually pulling the strings. And behind them is likely this AI demiurgic being, shape-shifting throughout time with whatever its goal seems to be. And let's get back to that, which apparently seems to be some sort of initiatory, but also harvestable practice. So in the second degree of initiation, the man is stripped of his ego, becomes a bride, right? Becomes more sensitive, more attuned with the feminine, right? So again, this is also happening to society at large, right? Since we entered the new millennial, the 2000s, everything has become more feminine, and we've seen a greater predisposition towards matriarchal practices that were done back in the day, which is things like orgies, abortion, polygamy, or even what's it called? Care by mothers by community. So a matriarchal community in which people were sort of given more allegiance to the women in terms of their wisdom, right? Even the Native American tribes, they used to elect the chiefs of the tribe through women, right? There was a council of women. And this is actually very similar to the Judaic structure, right? It's a matriarchal structure, which alludes to the fact that they were matriarchal before they were patriarchal, and it wasn't something that was foreign to them, like it's mentioned by scholars. So in this case, people are shifting back to this feminine, right? To this chaotic, more so, structure as well, because the extremes keep happening, right? You can't have one without the other. You can't have chaos without some order here in this realm. So this practice of feminization is happening, and you notice this, it's quite pertinent in the New Age, right? Everyone that goes through it becomes much more feminine, becomes much more lacking in boundaries and traditions, much more willing to experiment. Oh, also, psychedelics was also a big part of the matriarchy, right? That's why many of those medicines are actually feminine in nature. Ayahuasca, DMT, they have a motherly figure at the center of these drugs, of these hallucinogenics. And it's a being. It's a being that, again, still seems to want to infiltrate, still seems to want to use, right? So it's not necessarily beneficial, but it's only on the surface it appears to be so. So through that second degree, people come out of that, and I myself have gone through this, right? And many of you probably as well. But I also started noticing the number synchronicities that also pertain to Freemasonry. At the first level would be 33, at the second would be 13, it seems, right? And in Masonry or modern Mithraism, 33 seems to be considered the first boundary in which you start thawing, right? You start finally melting the ice of your consciousness, right? Even Chiron Last mentions we are on ice here and off ice on Saturn, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, check out his Golden Web series, which were very interesting. So we're thawing that consciousness, and it seems that they want to keep initiating us to the pinnacle of becoming, I don't know, masters of our own destiny. Because I didn't mention this, but that was the foundation of Mithraism, which talks about Varun, or no, not Varun, Zarvun, I believe, which is basically Saturn, the god of time. That's why I mentioned the skull and crossbones at the beginning, because there's going to be a lot of edits because my phone keeps falling from the wind. But the god of time is what they're trying to conquer. They're trying they basically believe that there were 5 demons that were ruling over the soul and torturing the soul here. So again, that would lose more to Gnosticism. It later became the 7 initiatory rites, as well as 7 planets. But they also believed that the planets were influencing human beings here, influencing the soul, the spirit, and are causing turmoil. And we had to conquer these 5 to 7 demons, right? The 7 sins. Again, this became the basis for Gnosticism, it seems, because it turned into the archons, the rulers, the 7 candlesticks on the menorah, the 7 archangels. So they wanted to conquer this god of time, of destiny, because they saw Mithra, which was the swastika. No, they saw Mithra as going up to the swastika, which was the wheel, the astrological wheel, and the wheel around their heads, and turning it and becoming a ruler of the wheel, a ruler of destiny, a master over the archons. Now, could it be that Mithra already is the master of that wheel, because he's the one that created that wheel to begin with, right? The AI, the Demiurge, the whatever, the system that is already here in existence. And does it have as a goal for us to do the same, but become lesser gods, in a sense? Either way, it does seem to be a sort of initiatory practice, with the last level being someone that is master over their fate, master over their time here, right? Again, alluding to the skull and crossbones. But my theory is that yes, they want that, but then they would just turn into these shepherds, very similar to the Freemasons and what they think they are. They think they're masters over their destiny, and they act in accordance with both sides of duality, not realizing that they're also being puppeteered the whole time, and they've essentially sold their spirit essence to the system by continuing the participation in that wheel that constantly turns again and again, right? So that's something that's very interesting to think about in regards of the whole structure that has been set upon here. And, you know, even in terms of the harvesting idea, when you eat a fruit when it's ripe and you enjoy it, you want to enjoy it again. So then you must therefore plant the seed and wait for it to grow again and continue that cycle over and over again, right? But there's lots of interesting Aryan connections that seem to be popping up all over the place, specifically tied to Iran, India, and, you know, this whole other theory that could potentially be true regarding the beginning of civilization and the genetic experimentation by these beings that created us. So that's kind of all I want to say. I think the memory is within us. I think even though they wiped our astral bodies, our base consciousness, our egoic consciousness, I do think the spirit and the soul capsule hold a lot of these memory aspects that activate once we pursue them, and once, you know, we meet other people that can remind us of such things. You know, for example, Jesus, whoever he was, whatever his real name was, some people, the Greeks say it was Apollonius. Apollonius had the same story. Mithra is having the same story. Could there really have been a man that walked the earth and provided remembrance for all of us? Possibly. I looked up Mithra and Gematria. Mithra equals 528 and 88, the same Gematria, same numerological connections as El Elyon, as Jesus, which Jesus in Greek, and as Trump. So you can see Trump is definitely painted with the savior figurehead on his image. But it's interesting to connect the dots all the way back, because we need to be fully informed and know what's going on here. What is the whole picture? All right. Hope all that makes sense. I'm gonna try and edit this as best I can, so be patient if it's kind of all over the place. I'm gonna try and put the pieces of this video back together because my phone kept falling off. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Leave a like if you did enjoy it, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.